Good afternoon, class, and welcome back to our second class of the year for Math CSEC. My name is Leslie Joseph. I am your tutor for this afternoon. This afternoon, what we are dealing with is measuring distance. So we are looking at area and perimeter. Let's begin with the first slide. So what distance is a measure of how far 2 points are from each other. And the international standard unit of distance is the meter. As you would notice, we have some shapes here. So we have a rectangle, a square, and a circle. When we measure distance in a rectangle, we have a width, which is from point A to point B. We have a length, point B to point C. And because this is a four-sided shape, we have two short sides, which represent our width, and two long sides, which represent our length. In a circle, there are no corners as there are in the rectangle and the square. Therefore, we measure the distance from the middle of the circle to the end of it, and that gives us our radius. Right now, when we want to get the diameter of the circle, we would multiply the radius by 2 to get the entire length from one end of the circle to another end of the circle. Again, because circles are continuous, we more or less use the radius to be able to calculate both the perimeter and the area. Now, we also have squares. The difference between a square and a rectangle is such that a square, one square has all equal sides. So there are no long sides and short sides as there are with a rectangle. So where you have length with a rectangle, with a square, you only have side. All right? Now, the distance around a shape is called the perimeter. And certain shapes have formulas to calculate perimeters based on their dimensions. So let's look at the square. Perimeter of a square is equal to 4 multiplied by length of one side. For perimeter of a rectangle, it is equal to 2 multiplied by length plus width, right? Because the reason we have it this way, if we were to say, well, let's say this triangle represented a park, and we were walking in the park, we would start, let's use this frame of reference here as point A. So we would start at point A, walk the width of the park, and reach to point B. And then we would calculate the distance from here to here, and then we walk the length of it from point B to point C, then to D. And so to be able to calculate how much distance we walked, we started off at point A. So we add this distance to this distance, which is the length, and from A to B to A to B to C. So A, B, C, so B to C, and then C to D, and then D back to A. And that is why perimeter of a rectangle is 2 multiplied by length plus width. We have 2 sides that represents the width of the rectangle and 2 sides that represents the length of the rectangle. Now, the perimeter of a circle is called its circumference. And circumference is equal to 2 multiplied by this symbol here is represented by a constant known as pi times radius. Pi is a constant that we use in maths to represent degrees. Well, not degrees, actually. Pi is used in maths more or less as a constant that was able to allow us to calculate the distance around, because we can think of a circle as a straight line that is curved and has angles, and that is where we get pi from, right? So this is our first example, and after I show you this example, you guys have some questions to do. So if you have this example, and yeah, so we have 2 examples, and then you have some questions to do. You'll get about 15 minutes to do these questions, and then we'll go through the solutions together. So we want to calculate the parameters of the shapes given. So we have a square with a side of 12 centimeters, a rectangle with a side with a length of 16 millimeters and a width of 5 millimeters. And we have a circle with a radius of 2 meters. Firstly, for the square, we're going to employ the formula given to us here, right? So perimeter of a square is equal to 4 multiplied by length of one side of the square. So that would be 4 multiplied by 12 will give us 48 centimeters. To find the perimeter of the rectangle, we are going to simply use the values from the equation given to us here. Perimeter is equal to 2 multiplied by length plus width, as you can see that here. So 2, and what we are going to follow is order of operations. So everything that is within the brackets must be calculated before you can do any calculations with the numbers outside of the brackets. So 5 plus 16 will give us 21. Now we multiply this 21 because we have calculated what is in the brackets, therefore there is no need for brackets anymore. So it's 21 multiplied by 2, which gives us 42 millimeters. The circumference of our circle, it is 2 multiplied by pi multiplied by radius. So we have 2. Now we have a figure for pi here. So if you notice, pi is 3.1415927. We will only be using the up till the 4th place after the decimal point. So basically, we're going to put this in here. Right? So it's going to be 2 multiplied by 3.1415 multiplied by 2. And we get 2 because 2 is our radius. If our radius was 3, this would be a different figure. And our answer is 12.566 meters. Do you guys understand what I just taught?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Okay. Now, there is something I want you to notice. In our previous class, we dealt with conversion of units. We understand that distance is, the unit for distance is meters. So remember we had millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers. That is why at every end we pick, and it represents different values. So a millimeter is smaller than a centimeter, and a centimeter is smaller than a meter, and a meter is smaller than a kilometer. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your head, which is why we did conversion of units in the first class. Moving on to this next example. We have a garden in the shape of a rectangle to be fenced, and its dimensions are 12 meters long and 9 meters wide. However, it must have a space at the front of the garden that will be left for a gate that is 1.5 meters wide. What we must do that they want to know is to calculate the length of the fence that is needed to go around the garden. So this here in red, let me see if I can get this. Right, so this is our fence here. So we want this calculated to know what is the distance or the length of this fence. We know that the perimeter of a rectangle is 2 multiplied by length plus width. The gate is 1.5 meters. We must subtract this 1.5 meter from the length of one side to be able to find the perimeter for the entire fence. So what do? Here we continue with our perimeter as usual. Now this figure here, whatever answer we get here would give us the total perimeter of the entire garden without taking into account the width of the gate. So we are taking into account the width of the gate immediately. So we are subtracting it from this figure here. So 2 multiplied by 21, so 12 plus 9 will give you 21. 2 multiplied by 21, subtract 1.5. When we are dealing with order of operations, we deal with brackets or parentheses first, then any exponentiation that we have next. Then we do division, then we do multiplication, addition, and the last thing we do is subtraction. And this is why you find that this subtract or negative 1.5 remains constant throughout the equation until the very last step. Because we had brackets or parentheses, we had to calculate what was in the brackets and parentheses before we could even multiply the two. And when we did that, we got the answer 21. So now we have 2 multiplied by 21 because in our rules for order of operation, multiplication comes way ahead of subtraction. So we leave this negative 1.5 here, which is also another way of saying minus 1.5. When we have our product of 2 multiplied by 21, which is 42, then and only then can we subtract 1.5 from 42. This 42 represents the total perimeter of the garden without taking into account the width of the gate for the fence. So this 42 is the perimeter of the garden. It is not the length of the fence. And if you were to put this as your answer, the question would be marked as wrong because it was incomplete. To get the length of the fence and not the perimeter of the garden, we need to account for the 1.5 meter width of the gate that will be added to the fence. And so we need to subtract this distance from our perimeter of the entire garden. So that is why we subtract 1.5 from 42 to give us 40.5 meters. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
No, miss.
Good. So that means you all are ready to practice some questions on your own, not so? I'm not hearing a chorus of yes, miss.
Oh, yes, miss.
Great, wonderful. Please do start that. And when the timer pops up for our usual 10-minute break, that's when your time is up and you take your 10-minute break. And when we return, we will be correcting these questions. If you finish before then, and please try to, we will correct it before that time is up. So you have 4 questions. Actually, oh. Yes, you have 4 questions for now. So go ahead,